Hi Michelle, how are you?
Hi Michael, I'm well, thanks.
That's good. Thanks for coming out. Bit of a chilly morning.
Oh, it's freezing out
I
here
know, it's
today.
insane, but it will get warm for an hour later or
Yeah,
so.
yep,
Help yourself to some water if you'd like.
yep, thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd like to start. Yeah, I mean, when last we spoke, you were feeling a little bit overwhelmed about things, some time management issues, feeling a bit spread a bit thin. How have things been since last week?
I guess probably the same. Just finding it hard to stick to a schedule. Just lots of, I guess that's causing me stress, which is causing me anxiety. So I just, feel like I'm not getting anything done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is
okay.
really stressing and making me anxious.
Yeah, sure. You certainly are working hard, and it seems like you're spreading yourself very thin. Still those feelings?
Yeah, I feel like I rarely stick to a schedule, and which just causes me anxiety. And I
Yeah.
just feel like, I feel like everything I do is not great. I feel like with the study, I'm just becoming this. I don't know. I feel like I'm a bad student because I just can't
Interesting.
seem to get on top of
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah. I mean, my next question to you was going to be what you'd like to change. What would
I
you like to
guess
change?
I suppose coming here, I would like some to help me change would be on stress management, scheduling or time management to make me less anxious.
Yeah. So spend a little bit of time on that today, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to start by seizing on something, a phrase you used before. You said you're not a very good student, or you actually said you're a bad student. Um, One of the things we like to do is there's a school of therapy called cognitive behavioural therapy. It's called, but basically exploring the relationships between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviours, and how much can actually stem from some of our initial thoughts. That's it in a nutshell. I think we might have touched on it in the previous session. I'd like to just start by asking you, that phrase you use about being a bad student, what evidence is there? What have you got to say that you're a bad student?
Oh, I don't know. I just feel like everything I do is I leave everything to the last minute.
Yeah.
And I even think that's probably a bit reflective at work as well. Like, it's just getting done at the last minute and probably not to the 100% that I would like it to be.
Okay. Yeah, so quite high standards.
Probably.
Okay. And what evidence have you got then, to turn it the other way, what evidence have you got to the opposite? To say, maybe you are a good student, maybe you are a good time manager, maybe you are a good employee?
I feel like my boss is pretty happy with what I do.
Yeah, sure.
And
How are your marks at uni?
marks at uni are fine, they're
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no deficits there. One final question along this sort of theme. You've got a close friend also juggling a demanding work life, a demanding uni life, a demanding home life, children, everything, doing all the juggling you are, and they're also forming the same conclusions about themselves. I'm a terrible time manager, I'm bad at work, I'm bad at uni. What would you say to them?
Gosh, I would probably tell them to cut themselves some slack and maybe take a deep breath, and you can only do what you can only do, and you're probably doing a great job, you just don't realise it.
Interesting. Okay. I'd like to now maybe change tack a little bit. Sorry to throw the gears around. Using your imagination a little bit, I'd like you now to think of what your ideal scenario might be for your own circumstances. We call it like imagine that you've gone to sleep and you've woken up and a miracle's happened, and all of a sudden, all the issues that you've described are just miraculously solved. Now I know we're asking you to use your imagination a little bit, and there's a bit of a change of the gears, but maybe if you could work with me for a moment on this. Tell me a little bit about what this ideal world might look like for you.
Well, I guess I would wake up stress-free,
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
which would reduce any anxiety. I guess I would, a perfect world would probably help me in the both work and home and study front. Perhaps if a couple of nights a week, Jake, my husband, could step up and, look after the children, do dinner, and I could just have a few hours on, maybe a Tuesday night and maybe a Sunday morning where I can just study uninterrupted, which then would, I guess, set my week up better.
Okay. So you'd like him to sort of slip into the driver's seat of your domestic life a little bit and you're in the passenger seat for a moment?
Yeah.
Okay. And how in this ideal scenario, what's Jake's reaction to that?
Fine.
Yeah. Would it be a request? You're asking that of him?
Well, I guess in an ideal world he would see it and do it, but
Yeah, okay.
But no, I would request it. I would ask
him.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And his response would be?
I guess in an ideal world, his response would be, tell me what you need and what's going to make life easier for you, and how can I make things less stressful on the home and work and study front.
Okay. And how are the kids in this scenario?
Well, the kids wouldn't even notice.
Kids don't notice? Okay,
No.
great. And so you've talked about, an opportunity to maybe get off site a little bit to do your, obviously, work, but also maybe to get a block of study done. When you return home, what's that like? Firstly, what does it look like to you?
In the miracle situation?
Yeah.
I guess when I return home, it's all quiet. Everyone's doing what they should be doing, or they're in bed asleep. And, everyone's had dinner and homework's done. Maybe even the lunches are done the next day.
Yeah.
Kitchen's clean and, there's no issues.
And how are you feeling?
Relaxed and ready to go to sleep and have a good night's sleep and not worrying.
Great.
And less
Interesting.
stress.
Yeah, wow. I'm really impressed at how well you can articulate all that and describe to me how it's better for you. So that's really good. Well done. Thanks for that. Have you ever come close to a scenario like that in your domestic life?
A couple of weeks ago, I was kind of about to be at my wit's end with what was the lead up to what was going to be end of financial year plus a couple of assignments due in. And Jake, realised that he would need to step up. And so, yes, I suppose I, probably got a week of it.
Wow, okay. So that sounds like a big part of your miracle question, your miracle scenario already kind of achieved there.
Yeah, a one-off, yeah.
Okay, great. How was Jake about that?
He was fine.
Great. And more importantly, how did you manage to achieve that?
I guess just by asking.
So you did, yeah, wow, you asked him, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So you've asked the question. If we were to say, place on a scale of 0 to 10, your confidence that maybe you could repeat that asking, or you could repeat that scenario again, how would that be for you, do you think? Do you think you could ask him again?
Yeah, I feel like maybe I'm maybe a 4.
A 4, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Even on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, I think I would be thinking, oh, he's got interstate trips, he's going to be away, he's got a conference, he's got this.
You'd be thinking that, or he'd be saying that?
I'd be thinking that.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Continuing our theme of using those scaling questions, 0 to 10, 0 is the worst that you're feeling in this scenario, your problem of time management and getting some space to work, study and everything. And 10's the best you could possibly feel about that. I'd be interested to know how you feel about that right now.
I think when I came here, I probably felt like I was a bit of a two.
Yeah, really, okay, yeah. But not now?
But now sort of talking through it and the fact I've sort of done it before without like the miracle. I've
Yeah,
asked for something. I'm probably at a 4,
okay.
maybe a 5.
So feeling a bit more positive about
Yeah.
things. Yeah, interesting. Just, yeah, I was going to ask, and what about everything else that we've discussed here? How do you feel about that? Because we're probably going to need to wrap up pretty soon.
Probably
Right,
similar,
okay.
like I think I probably walked in here starting at a 2 and I'm probably maybe at a 5 now.
Right, interesting. Well, that's really good. Yeah, I mean, I want to commend you on the progress that you've made today. I do need to wrap it up now. But yeah, to me it seems like you've already made some really big steps towards, you know, making your miracle happen. And please tell me if I'm wrong or I'm misinterpreting any of that. Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you seem to be growing in confidence.
Slowly.
Yeah. With your, I guess, with your belief that you can make it happen again.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I think you yourself have described your own happiness as just in the space of a fairly short term, and talking it through has come up from a 2 out of 10 to maybe a 4 or a 5 out of 10. I personally think we can progress that. I guess with that in mind, just thinking a little bit about a homework task for you. Something to do between now and next time we get together. I'd love you to, if you can maybe just observe yourself in this realm of your time management and your domestic dealings at home with Jake and everything with the kids. If there's anything that pops up where you think that you've made a little bit of an improvement, anything that, you know, whether it's your dealings with Jake or, you know, with the kids or whatever, that moves you again a little bit closer to that miracle, I'd love you maybe to just take a moment, thanks, yeah, for jotting it down, get to in the moment to jot that down for us, so that we could maybe get together next time and talk about that. How do you feel about that?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, I mean, my reason for asking that, I think that by you seeing the little steps that you yourself can make towards progressing towards that ideal scenario, I think that will help you enormously. And that's why I thought it might be a good thing for us to talk about. Could we do that and then get together next time? Great. Well, thanks very much. I think that's everything we need to talk. Do you have any questions at all?
No.
And are you happy with how things went today?
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Cheers. Oh, you can walk through. I'm going to talk to you. Thank you. Okay, I'm slipping now into a bit of feedback about the role play. I think I do this verbally this way. What are my main reasons? I meant to read the questions out too. What are my main reasons for using a little bit of CBT at the start? And a phrase that Michelle used, that she's a bad student. I just wanted to explore that a little bit. I believe that just a little bit of reprogramming might help her in that regard. So that was my reason for just doing a little bit of CBT at the start. What impact did I expect from using the CBT? Well, I think that by her starting to understand that the role that her initial cognitions are making of herself as a bad student, that may in fact be part of what's impeding her ability to ask for help from Jake and the kids. So that's sort of why I did that, and that was the impact that I expected. Okay, another technique that I used. What were my reasons for using the miracle question? Well, I thought that would help Michelle to make some form, to shift her focus from a problem orientation to a solution orientation. That was I thought there was an opportunity there to do that. What did I expect? Well, I guess I expected an increased focus on her strengths and her capacities within herself to create improvement. So yeah, that was my reasons for doing that. What were my reasons for using the exception question? Again, to help Michelle focus on the possibility that she herself is capable of creating positive change. And what did I expect to happen with that? I guess I was expecting a bit of a light bulb moment, that change is possible. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but I guess that was what I was expecting out of it. And a fourth technique I used were the scaling questions. Again, just to enable Michelle to see some progress and to maybe appreciate that positive and tangible change is possible. That was my reasoning for doing it. What did I expect? I was possibly expecting Michelle to create a bit more of a realisation that simply by expressing her needs to Jake, she can create positive change, and that it might in fact be that simple for her. Do I think there are any limitations in applying a solution focus to Michelle? Yeah, I think I do. I think the main limitation is that Michelle seems to have a barrier there in expressing her needs to Jake. And I think that one of the things that might underpin that is that she has a negative self-perception and concerns around what Jake's perceptions are of her. So she might be starting with that perception that I'm hopeless at this, I'm hopeless at multitasking, I'm hopeless at being a student, I'm hopeless at work, I'm hopeless possibly in the eyes of Jake too, although she hasn't articulated that. So that might be part of what is making her a bit reluctant to say, hey, Jake, I need a bit of a hand here. So that's a limitation I think that we might need to overcome. And also, I guess a second limitation is that she seems reluctant to grant sort of domestic independence. And this might be related to the first barrier, I think, but she seems to be reluctant to grant domestic independence both to Jake and the kids. She seems intent on kind of placing herself in the middle of it all, and it might reinforce some sense in herself that she's not hopeless. And that's where I think, overcoming a lot of that sense, that initial starting point of herself as being hopeless might help. What's written in my notes and what do I think went well? I've got, obviously, my notes there are a bit scrawly. I believe I type those so that they can be attached as a document rather than taking a photo of them and JPEGing them. So client name, Michelle Smith, session 4, the date. The goal to help Michelle's time management, anxiety and stress. So the topics that we discussed that what it means to her being a good student, being a bad student, what her ideal scenario is for her problem at home with time management and Jake. And then from that, we were able to see that in fact she's making some inroads into that herself and has already sort of started doing that. And hopefully that's an empowering process. I've got the word empowerment there. And also a realisation that maybe she can repeat those inroads. The interventions that we used CBT around Michelle's belief that she's a bad student. We employed the miracle question, the exception questions, some scaling questions, and a homework task in there as well. And we discussed that next session we'd be discussing any inroads that Michelle is able to make towards, again, her own miracle scenario, and then signed. I think that's all the feedback stuff I needed to discuss. Thanks very much. Cheers, bye.